Alright you tricky bastards, welcome to my Mage Trickster build. I had lots of issues balancing this build out for the highest difficulty, which is Chaos 5, so that's why it took a while to come out with the new build, but I finally managed to figure out a build for Mage that will help you on the highest difficulty, be it Relic, Hunt, Expedition or Boss. All the footage that you see here has been recorded on Chaos 5 difficulty. This build does not outright kill everything and everyone on Chaos 5 difficulty, instead we are using all the tricks in the bag in order to survive and deal massive damage to huge groups of enemies. Build is also very good against bosses, because you can lay down some of the spells from afar and just let them go to work on its own against the boss, while you can run around avoiding their attacks in any way, shape or form. Core principle of this build is to use two types of damage, magical and fire, to boost damage of the other one. So when we use any spell that does magical damage, our next fire spell will do a lot more, and vice versa. Another thing that this build is good at is slowing enemies down and repelling them, meaning pushing them back, so that they cannot reach you. Let's start with the build then. First skill, which is our left mouse button that generates energy for each enemy hit, should be either Arcane Hail Mastered or Akshi Missile Mastered. Doesn't matter which one of these two, both are fine. One does fire damage, another one does magic damage. On the right mouse button I have Dome that I can summon to slow down enemies, slow their projectiles and also burn them. This is very important ability for Chaos 4 and Chaos 5 difficulties, especially when doing relic hunts, because this is what's going to save you from death. We do not have many health points, so this is one of these tricks that we use with this build in order to survive. On lower difficulties, by that I mean from hard up to Chaos 2, let's say somewhere around there, you can swap this ability with anything else. Next one we have Step Between Worlds. Level 1. We do not have many points available to us, that's why this is only at level 1. Basic teleportation skill, unbelievably useful to get away quickly from nasty situations. Next skill is called Blinding Light, and this is the final upgrade. Most important thing about this ability is that it heals you significantly, and with this setup cooldown will be low, meaning we will be able to summon it all the bloody time in order to damage and repel enemies, which is also very important, and it also slows them, which is also very important, because then they're gonna have to spend more time getting back to you while you are still damaging them. But the biggest benefit of it is definitely health regeneration. Then we have Etheric Ray, final upgrade. High damaging ability with this build. These magical orbs slow down enemies as well, which is important, and we can summon with mastered version of it up to 3 rays at the same time. Last ability is called Phoenix Bulwark. It is also final upgrade. Basic wall of flame like in any other game. I'm using it in this build because it's great in combination with Etheric Ray, skill that I mentioned before this one, because one does fire damage, another one does magical damage, and we already said that the point of this whole build is to do massive damage with both damage types by alternating between them. Now on to passives. First one is from God's Tree. It's called Arcane Secrets and it's second upgrade. Burning enemies take more magical damage, self-explanatory. Second one is called Arcane Binding, and this is heroic version, meaning I'm using set called Dragon Tamer that improves this ability and makes it cost 0 skill points. You can see what it does, one of the reasons why we can do high damage with both damage types. Last passive is called Continuity and we are using second upgrade. It is also from God's Tree. I'm not entirely sold on this skill. The only thing why I'm using it is because it has damage taken reduction by 15%, which is quite significant. We need high damage reduction in order to survive, because we have a low health pool. There isn't even a tooltip that describes what it does to damage dealt. It says that it's reduced as well, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. It seems like there are 3 detrimental things and 1 good thing, which is damage taken reduction. So if you do not want to use this skill, I completely understand you, but then you're gonna have to substitute it with something else that can increase your survivability on highest difficulty, because damage taken reduction is very important stat for this build. Let's head on to passive god tree and see what I did there. Let's check path to the left first. It goes all the way to that medium node that increases cooldown reduction by 10%. This path also offers couple of cooldown reduction upgrades, and also it gives us nice increase to maximum health, which is quite important for highest difficulties. We also get 2 continuity upgrades. And last point I have used to get Aether Blast level 3 upgrade, but I should not have done so because that skill is not that great. It says it does massive damage, it does, but it takes a while to trigger and cooldown is high, and so fuck it. Don't use it. Use it on anything else. Any mini node is more useful than this. Next path is damage path. It goes on the right and it gives us Ether Storm level 1 and level 3 with all 3 upgrades of arcane secrets and greatly increased critical damage. Ether Storm is nice ability that you can use instead of Wall of Fire if you want. But the problem is it has high cooldown, while Wall of Fire can be used whenever. In the end it is up to you. Set that I'm using is called Dragon Tamer. Casting a fire spell unleashes magic projectile and vice versa. So that means there's always some kind of projectile floating around us that's gonna damage the enemy. And it's gonna have increased damage because we have arcane binding and magical damage increase on burning enemies from our passives. This is also why arcane binding passive skill no longer requires skill points to equip. There is also another set that could work with this build. It's called Morvel set, something like that. Unfortunately, I couldn't get Helm to drop no matter what. Spent half a day trying, so I decided to stop wasting time on that. I'm assuming it would work nicely, so choose one of the 2. Weapon that I'm using is called Blade of Instability. It sends forth wave that repels enemies whenever we cast fire or magic spell, which is all the time. That wave is also of the opposite element, that gets bonuses from arcane binding and arcane secrets passives. Another option is called Rift Eater. This is very powerful DPS oriented weapon that works fantastic with Ether Ray, but I had to ditch it on the highest difficulties because that wave from Blade of Instability repels enemies, and that buys you a lot of time and prevents enemy hordes overwhelming you quickly. With Rift Eater we don't have that option, unfortunately. Up until I'd say Chaos 2 and Chaos 3, use Rift Eater and then afterwards start using Blade of Instability. Second weapon is called Relentless Sentinel. It creates an area on the ground that increases our damage, reduces damage taken, that is why I'm using it primarily, and increases critical chance by 10%, which is also a nice bonus. We get everything from this that we need, so there's no reason not to use it. Rings that I'm using are Ring of Dragon and Ring of Radiance. Ring of Radiance reduces current cooldowns by 50% upon performing critical hit. I mean, there's a chance that that will happen. And the Dragon's Ring works the same way, but it offers us damage taken reduction by 20% for 3 seconds if we are lucky enough for it to activate. As for necklace, use anything that you want. Important stats that we are looking for are maximum health increase, critical hit chance and critical damage. Cooldown reduction stat is not that necessary here because we have already enough bonuses from ring, necklace if you are wearing one that reduces cooldowns, and passives from God's Tree. Now to describe what I'm actually doing with all of this. First thing that I do is summon Dome that slows down enemies and burns them when they are inside it. If the enemies are too close, then I use Blinding Light to push them back and slow them down a bit further. Now I summon Wall of Fire and Etheric Ray 3 times, because that is the maximum amount of rays we can have. What is happening now is that enemies are getting continuously damaged while trying to reach us, and they are having hard time reaching us because of Blinding Light and waves created by Blade of Instability. Eventually enemies will get through to you, and when that happens, teleport away, summon another Dome on top of you, create another Wall of Fire, summon 3 Etheric Rays, and continue doing the same thing. That way you can deal with insanely large groups of enemies at once, but be careful on highest difficulties since you can get one shot quite easily so. Especially if you're doing relic hunts with plus 20% enemy damage, and especially be careful with poison clouds. Don't even do those types of maps because this is static build, meaning we are staying on one spot for the most part. These poison clouds do stupid amount of damage in this game for some reason, and that is why they should be avoided in relic hunts with this build. Don't forget to teleport away as soon as you see enemies getting through to you. This is very important to do. Don't let them hit you even once. That's all for this build, I hope you like it. I know this is only for end game, but this is what we are striving for when playing this game, and because there is no need for any specific builds and gear before getting to the end game. Don't even bother matching sets or anything like that before you get to red gear, it's pointless. Just get through story as soon as possible, on whatever difficulty you see fit, hard, very hard, whatever. Just don't go chaos, and then start doing expeditions, relic hunts, bosses on highest difficulties with this build. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the build, and see you all soon.